Viewers, after almost a year and a half, BARC or BARC, which measures television ratings, released its data today. As editor-in-chief and editorial director of Times Now, I'm very, very pleased to announce that your channel has emerged once again with flying colors. Needless to say, this is all because of your unstinting support, viewers. Indeed, because of your committed viewership, Times Now has emerged as the most watched channel in the prestigious AB market segment of all cities with a population of 10 lakh plus or 1 million plus. This is amongst all TV watchers, males and females. In short, this target group is the largest universe of English news watchers. As you know, the ratings were suspended after a police case was filed citing a scam at the heart of the audience rating mechanism system. The police alleged that certain news vendors were manipulating the ratings to scam Times Now and other channels. We suffered immeasurable financial loss over 2 years, viewers. Records of conversations, WhatsApps between these TV news vendors and officials of BARC appeared in public. The police said that these WhatsApp chats established that the ratings measurement system had been gamed. Now, viewers, even though the BARC or the BARC system hasn't been quite cleaned up, because the ratings agency is yet to implement all the important safeguards needed to make the system foolproof or robust, Times Now agreed to the decision of the I&B Ministry to release the data so that smaller players in the news fraternity dependent on ad revenue for their survival don't collapse. Remember, viewers, we are a subscription-driven channel. You subscribe to us because you believe in our journalism. We're not free to air like some of the others. And therefore, it is all the more creditable that we have emerged once again as leaders of the widest viewership universe. Of course, viewers, the accused in this TRP scam have not yet been exonerated, but that doesn't stop them from throwing stones at others. And it is not either my style or the channel's style to get into the trough and wrestle these individuals. It's a choice they make. But we here at Times Now are only interested in the choice you make. Yes, you are precious viewers. And thanks, therefore, again, from the bottom of all our hearts for choosing Times Now. We hope to live up to your expectations, and we hope to continue to bring to you the news first, bolstered by hard facts, so that you are drawn closer to the truth, which, of course, is the end of all journalistic enterprise. Again, viewers, thank you. Thank you for reposing your trust in us, and thank you so much for standing by us. This has been a very, very trying year and a half with Corona scything through newsrooms, claiming lives, and of course, viewers, very importantly, making it almost impossible to do our jobs. But it is your love, your affection, your support, and I'm not going to mince my words here, that has kept us growing and kept us going. Thank you once again. Thank you. I want to move on because the news never stops, viewers. Times Now's investigations into the genocide of Hindus in Kashmir continues for its 5th straight day. We've exposed how the Kashmiri Hindus were not even designated as victims of communal killings because it was more important for the liberal ecosystem to pretend that Islamist hate didn't exist in India. Today, that ecosystem compounds the travesty of the original sin by shockingly trying to question the veracity of not just the film Kashmir Files, but also the versions of the Holocaust narrated by the community itself. But viewers, their callous attempts, the callous attempts of this ecosystem to cover up will not succeed because there are just too many stories, too many versions of the truth. Tonight we bring you a story of a stunning betrayal. And we also come closer to establishing, perhaps for the first time, who needs to answer for this betrayal. On 30th April 1990, prominent Kashmiri Pandit and a renowned poet, Sarvanand Kaul, and his younger son were abducted and gunned down. Their bodies were found mutilated and hanging from a tree. But the torture and travesty for the family had only begun. After no sight of justice for 9 years, Kaul, the wife of Sarvanand Koul, petitioned the government for a CBI investigation. But viewers, as this document in my hand establishes, the Jammu and Kashmir government of the day not just junked the plea, but also had the gall to say that a CBI investigation would serve no purpose in the case. Now just contrast, viewers, this damning, callous, cold-hearted rejection with the sustained campaign, the elements of this same ecosystem launched in the aftermath of the Godhra riots, of the post-Babri riots. They all demanded CBI inquiries. Commissions were appointed, viewers. Commissions. Times Now has accessed the MHA letter that reveals the compromise and cover-up on justice. This letter says, viewers, and it is addressed to Srimati Kaul, who's living in Lodi colony. It's written on October 25, 1999, full 9 years after the event. It says, Madam, in continuation to my letter dated such and such, I'm directed to state that in reply to an ADO letter from Home Minister addressed to the Chief Minister, Jammu and Kashmir, the Chief Minister has intimated the position with regard to various issues pending with the state government as under. And it goes on to say, viewers, to the question that is asked, under Clause E, investigation of the murder by CBI, it is felt that no purpose would be served by handing over the case to the CBI at this stage. Viewers, 2 people abducted, lynched, hung from a tree. 2 Hindus. And these people didn't think. And these people didn't think. And these people didn't think, viewers, that a CBI inquiry was required. And remember, by then, viewers, the fact that lakhs, hundreds of thousands of Kashmiri Hindus had been hounded out of the valley had been well established. The thousands had been butchered had been well established. Now we're going to be speaking, viewers, and this is very important, to the descendants of Mr. Sarvanand Kaul. Rajendra Koul joins us. Thank you so much for speaking to Times Now. Tell us about what you went through in 1990, sir. First question first.
Things around us are not good, are not conducive. We we will have to leave, we will have to do something, but he overruled everybody, saying that मेरे पढ़ाए हुए बच्चे हैं, मेरे कलेजे के टुकड़े हैं, हमारे बच्चे हैं, मैंने किसका क्या बिगाड़ा है? I have not harmed anybody. Why should they harm us? On 24th of April 1990 was the Eid, छोटी ईद, फितर जिसे कहते हैं वहां पे. तो ही सेड कि इस साल में घरों में नहीं जाऊंगा ईद मुबारक देने के लिए. ही इनवाइटेड ऑल ऑफ देम टू हिज प्लेस एंड वी एंटरटेन देम विद अ कप ऑफ टी. ही रोट एन इन्विटेशन लेटर टू देम requesting them to have a cup of tea at his home because
yes.
the environment those days was not quite good. It was not conducive for him to go home after home. And we had 60 people, around 60 people of our village, citizens council at our home, offered them tea and they promised, Khuda ki kasam, Muhammad ki kasam, Khane Kaaba ki kasam, you will be safe, we are here, nobody can harm you. आप हमारे रक्षक हैं, हम आपके रक्षक हैं. Because every now and then my father used to help them. He helped every poor, he helped anybody whosoever came to him for any help, and he was always ready to help anybody. But this was betrayed. ये ट्रस्ट खत्म हो गया, विश्वासघात हो गया. On the night of 27th of April 1990, if I remember correctly, 3 militants, masked men, 3 terrorists knocked our back door of the big house. They knocked the door, we went outside and they said we have to go to some गुलाम रसूल के घर पे जाना है. हमने कहा भाई हमारे पूरे इस इलाके में कोई गुलाम रसूल नहीं रहता है. They said फिर पछताओगे तो दरवाजा खोल दो. इसी में somebody forced his entry to our house. There were 3 boys, I still remember. I am a live witness to the situation. I was there. My younger brother Virendra Veer, Hanuman of the family, was also there. My youngest brother Ravinder had already he was already in his job in Delhi only, and we all were asked to come and assemble in one room where my father was staying. They came and entered the house and asked everybody to come in a room, and वो बिजली का ट्रांसफार्मर उन्होंने 2-3 दिन पहले ही बंद किया. This was a planned program. What nobody told us, nobody informed about us.
I don't know what to say. The very fact that you have to sit here और आपको अपनी सफाई देनी पड़ रही है, हम सब लोगों को शर्म आनी चाहिए. आपकी जो मदर थी मिसेस कौल, उन्होंने होम मिनिस्ट्री को एक चिट्ठी लिखी थी डिमांडिंग सीबीआई इंक्वायरी. वो चिट्ठी हमारे पास है. आप मुझे बताइए, आप व्हाई डू यू बिलीव कि फारूक अब्दुल्ला की सरकार ने ये रिजेक्ट किया? प्रेमी साहब.
सर इसी के बाद not only an expeditious and speedy inquiry, तो इन्होंने क्या किया? इन्होंने कहा कि at this point of stage no purpose of will be served by handing over this case. इसके बारे में मिनिस्टर ऑफ होम जो थे उस समय के भूतपूर्व श्री एल के अडवाणी जी, उन्होंने चिट्ठी लिखा. उस समय के जो राज्य के मुख्यमंत्री थे डॉक्टर फारूक अब्दुल्ला साहब, उनको चिट्ठी लिखा कि ये केस हैंड ओवर करें सीआईबी को. और उसमें ये स्टेट का रिकमेंडेशन होना जरूरी था, शायद इसलिए कि धारा 370 थी, सो मोटो ये नहीं कर सकते थे. लेकिन अफसोस की बात है, शर्म की बात है, लेटर का जवाब उन्होंने दिया कि एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम नो पर्पस विल बी सर्व्ड. तो इसके बाद में नेशनल ह्यूमन राइट्स कमीशन में चला गया. उन्होंने मेरे पिटीशन को स्टेट गवर्नमेंट में भेज दिया कि आप ये स्टेट ह्यूमन राइट्स कमीशन में काइंडली लिसन टू हिम फॉर दिस एंड फॉर एन लॉजिकल कंक्लूजन ऑफ दिस केस. उन्होंने मुझे 4.5 साल तक सुना, और सारे जो गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे थे, जितने भी वकील आ रहे थे उनके, दे वर ऑल डिफीटेड विद माय सिंपल आर्ग्यूमेंट. हमारे दोनों मकानों को जलाया गया, हमारे मंदिर को डिमोलिश किया गया. जो ये किडनैपिंग एंड असैसिनेशन का केस है वो तो फॉर्मल एक एफआईआर दर्ज करी उन्होंने. आई वांटेड ए प्रिसाइज I wanted the exact date, I wanted the exact FIR, जितनी भी वहां पे हुई थी, ये इसकी कहानी वो सारा FIR में दर्ज हो, ताकि कल लोगों को पता चले कि क्या असली हुआ था। मकानों का FIR भी है, इसका त्रासदी का भी FIR है, लेकिन जो हमारा काउशेड था उसका कोई FIR भी नहीं है। जब 2 मकान जलाए गए, बीच में ये था, तो कैसे हो सकता कि वो बच जाए। अब जो मंदिर था हमारे सामने 100 मीटर्स अवे, उसको भी इन्होंने डिमोलिश किया, उसका भी FIR है, लेकिन वो FIR कॉपी आज तक भी मुझे नहीं मिली है। FIR नंबर मुझे बताते गए कि ये FIR नंबर है, बट नोबडी हैज हेल्प्ड मी डिस्पाइट माय वेरियस रिक्वेस्ट्स एंड रिमाइंडर्स। नहीं आ रहा है। इसके बाद स्टेट ह्यूमन राइट्स कमीशन ने स्टेट सरकार को लिखा कि विद इन 2 मंथ्स टाइम फ्रेम आप इसका इंप्लीमेंटेशन कीजिए। नहीं हुआ। मैंने स्टेट सरकार को दोबारा से लिखा, आई वॉज परस्यूइंग दिस केस। हालांकि आई एम ग्रेटफुल टू सम ऑफ माई स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ माई लेट फादर, जो ब्यूरोक्रेसी में थे, जिन्होंने इस केस को, जिसमें एक ब्यूरोक्रेट ने लिखा कि दिस इज शेम ऑन अस, एंड एक ब्यूरोक्रेट वहां पे थे, प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी टू गवर्नर, वो नाम याद नहीं आ रहा, उन्होंने सॉरी भी लिखा मेरे मदर को, वी आर वेरी सॉरी फॉर बीइंग लेट इन योर मैटर।
Well, the system shut its door. Premi ji, thank you very much for speaking to Times Now. And viewers, the hounding hasn't stopped after a sustained campaign to bury the truth. Now there is a bid to black out the injustice of the Hindu Holocaust. Browbeating has begun. But Times Now is relentless in its fight to reopen the Kashmir files. After the film Kashmir Files created ripples not just in the box office, but in political corridors, a red-faced Congress has launched an offensive. Detailed press conferences and meandering tweets, its leaders have dismissed the film as half-truth and full lies. Times Now's pointed questions on accountability of the then Congress party for the Hindu genocide were unanswered. At least that's what the Kashmiri Hindus think. Congress instead launched a full-on offensive against the film. Now watch this, viewers, as some of these individuals come out and they target from Bhupesh Baghel, Sandeep Dikshit, Nasir Hussain. Listen to them.
जैसे कि उसके हीरो कृष्णा खुद ही कहते हैं कि बौद्धिस्टों को भी मारा गया है, सिखों को भी मारा गया है और मुस्लिम को भी मारा गया है, तो वो चीज़ें तो नहीं दिखाई गई। देखने के बाद बता रहे हैं कि पिक्चर आधी अधूरी है, पूरी सच नहीं बताई गई है और उसका समाधान कुछ नहीं है। और ऐसे पिक्चर जिसमें समाधान नहीं है, उस दिशा में कोई प्रयास नहीं है, कोई संदेश नहीं देने की कोशिश, केवल हिंसा दिखाने की कोशिश है, मैं नहीं समझता इसका कोई औचित्य है।
ये बात भी तो पूछनी चाहिए कि जो आज इस फिल्म के द्वारा एक राजनीति कर रहे हैं इस पूरे मसले पर, उन्होंने क्या किया इसका सकारात्मक। आपने 370 आया, ठीक है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, 370 ऐसे भी मर सा गया था। उसके बाद क्या पिछले 2-2.5 साल में वहाँ आप लोगों को वापस भेज पाए हैं कि नहीं? क्या जिस तरीके से उनको एक सहायता मिलती है वो मिलती है कि नहीं?
Militants had done that. We had condemned that. Targeting Congress for something that was done during the time when Mr. VP Singh was the Prime Minister and BJP was supporting his government, and when Mr. Jagmohan Singh was the governor, is something which is very absurd.
Now, viewers, juxtapose this outrage by the Congress party with the way they hailed films on the 2002 Gujarat riots. Kashmir Files was propaganda, but films like Parzania and Firak were hailed as gospel truth. Here is what I mean. Focus on your screens, viewers. Parzania, Himanshu Vyas of the Gujarat Congress said, wanted people to watch the film without fear. Special screening planned to expose the BJP. They had absolutely no compunctions about saying that this was a political project to expose the BJP. Nandita Das, when it came to Firak, said Rahul Gandhi was special guest at screening. Rahul Gandhi couldn't stop praising the movie. Rahul Gandhi, of course, goes there, graces this movie. Here, viewers, despite the fact that he calls himself a proud Kashmiri Hindu, a Kashmiri Pandit, he allows his party to slander the movie makers. And I want to ask some basic questions to them, because you see, viewers, if they can discredit everything, then they can get away by saying, but there was nothing. So what action did you expect us to take when there was nothing? Many questions. Today we are questioning Farooq Abdullah, his party spokesperson, has decided not to come. It's sad. We exposed the Congress. And there have been so many things, viewers, that we've been saying. We all know the problems. And I want to straight away bring in Dr. Anand Ranganathan, who joins us. And I want to ask you, Dr. Ranganathan, there's an attempt now being made, a very focused attempt. What do you make of this attempt?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my panelists. There are three issues that I want to delve on very briefly, Rahul. Number one, but before I do, I want to say this. Many people have been saying since the Kashmir Files was released that there are versions of truth. I'm sorry. I say this as a scientist. There are no versions of truth. There is only one truth. There is no Rashomon here. There is only one truth, and there will always be one truth. There could be many opinions or interpretations. So the sad fact out here, Rahul, is that no one comes out of it unscathed or unbiased. And that is the real tragedy. Number one, there have been vicious attempts by other channels. I am sorry to say this, your fellow journalists as well, some of them are Kashmiri Pandits, who are saying that was this really a genocide? Was this really a Kashmiri Hindu genocide? Because at most 500 or 1,000 Kashmiri Hindus were killed. And it pains me to say this, to even mention this, that by that logic, should you say that the Sikh genocide where 3,300 Sikhs were killed, or the Tasmanian genocide where 1,000 Tasmanians were annihilated, compared to Armenian genocide or the Holocaust where 7 million Jews were murdered, those genocides also pale in comparison. So would you say that 1984, the Sikh genocide did not happen? Or the Tasmanian genocide did not happen in the 19th century? This is the logic people are using for dehumanizing the crimes committed against Kashmiri Hindus. But what can we talk about journalists when we look at the state being complicit? But here again, Rahul, we don't have to go back 30 years to say that the state was complicit. And I include the judiciary. I may be hauled up for contempt, but I hold the judiciary in the state as well, because as early as or as late as 2017, what do you say when a part of the state, part of our democracy says that we will not open the cases that relate to the crimes committed against Kashmiri Hindus? The Supreme Court says this. Where do you go then? Why do you go back to the National Conference or Congress or BJP when our own Supreme Court is saying this? What can be more criminal than that? And finally, Rahul, I hope you don't mind, but I want to apply the Anderson's razor here, which is that I don't hold Warren Anderson responsible for the Bhopal genocide because he is a criminal. It is his job to escape. I hold the people who allowed him to escape. I hold them gullible. I hold them guilty like Rajiv Gandhi. So here, I don't hold people like Gilani or Yasin Malik or Bitta responsible. I hold the people whose job it was to save the Kashmiri Pandits. Theirs was the job. And there every state government, every national central government is complicit. I ask, the equivalence can be drawn here if Jews were driven out of Jerusalem. Do you think the state of Israel would hold Hamas or Fatah gullible or guilty? Would you say that, oh, look, we are helpless. We raise our hands. We can't do anything for our fellow Jews. We keep on blaming Hamas or Fatah or the Palestinians or the Gaza Strip? No. Israel would never let that happen. The fact that we have BJP, Congress, NC, all the other governments complicit in this tells about the weakness of the state, Rahul. We have to accept it. Otherwise, there can be no catharsis. There can be no cure. There can be no reconciliation.
You know, Dr. Ranganathan, God give you more power. Because in 2013, I was with another channel. I was the editor-in-chief of that channel. I don't want to go back into the past too far, but it's important. And I began to talk about the very touchy subject of Hindu phobia in the valley and the Islamization of the polity there. And I was called out many times, trolled. That time Twitter was just this nascent, puppling. It's now turned into a beast. But at that time, it was just one of these things. And I, being technologically challenged, did not even grasp its scope. And people used to write rotten stuff. Got quite a few death threats from the valley. So-called terrorists. I never spoke about it. I never even complained about it. I didn't want, security and all of that. Not that sort of person. I was shaken. And people called me a bigot. People called me a bigot. What were we doing? As an instrumentality of the extended state, the informal state, if you like. It's only asking the questions that needed to be answered and had not been asked for almost 25 years. I want to ask, though, the BJP a question or two, because this is what the Kerala Congress has been saying. The Pandit issue. You see how difficult it is for the Kerala Congress to even refer to the term Hindu here. The Pandit issue suited BJP's propaganda. BJP engineered Hindu-Muslim divide. Sanju Verma, how would you respond to what the Kerala Congress has said? Or Mallikarjun Kharge, senior Congress leader, PM Modi is trying to polarize the society. Movie is one-sided, misleading youth of India. How do you respond? It's a charge that is being made.
Rahul, I want to make it very clear that today, if you and me and the other panelists are sitting here and having a proper, no-holds-barred discussion on a subject as sensitive as the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus, let's be under no illusion. It is because when Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, says that freedom of expression is something which we uphold, irrespective of ideological differences with our peers and contemporaries, it is something we believe in. We walk the talk on that. So to say that the BJP, the Congress and the National Conference, Mr. Ranganathan put everybody in the same, bracket and said everybody is complicit. Respectfully, I completely disagree. And I'll tell you why. The fact is, I've been watching your show and you've been carrying out some of the most sensitive, factual debates on the Kashmiri genocide. And every victim, I was listening to Ashutosh, whose father was killed in 1989. And then, Premnath Bhatt's son, who was a Kashmiri Pandit, he was also there on your channel a couple of minutes back. And the one thing which both of them...
Sanju Verma, you silenced yourself. I think you muted yourself. Could you unmute yourself, please? Thank you. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Them who you showcased today were the sons of Kashmiri Pandits who were victimized and butchered in the valley. They said one very important thing. They said, contrary to popular perceptions that the Kashmiri genocide, ethnic cleansing, forced exodus happened in 1989 or 1990, no. It actually started way back in 1986. It started with the Anantnag riots of 1986. It gathered momentum with the bomb blast at the Central Telegraph Office in 1988. It gathered momentum with the Rajiv Gandhi Farooq Abdullah Accord in 1986. The point I'm trying to make is that at least give credit to the BJP that we are trying to ensure that history has now been showcased for what it is. Tell me, Rahul, for 100 years, mind you, the Moplah genocide took place on 20th August 1921, went on till 19...
Okay, I think you muted yourself again. I get the drift.
Let me finish, Rahul. Let me finish. This is not fair. I'll take 20 seconds. Here, our children were made to believe that the Moplah genocide was actually a peasant. It was the Muslims who were taking up arms against the British. Last year, the Indian Council of Historic Research said no. The Moplah genocide was about 10 Hindus being butchered by Muslim radicals. When did this happen? When the Modi government is in power. Tipu Sultan has been hailed as a martyr, despite the fact that on 12th December 1785, 90,000 Kodaga Kannadas were driven out of their home, butchered, raped.
Yeah, yes.
So the Modi
no, I'm glad that the narrative... No, I'm glad.
The right narrative is brought... No,
yes, I'm glad that the truth has come out. Yes, but
Come
Miss...
on, Rahul, let me finish. I'll take 10 seconds. You are not an impatient man. All I'm trying to say is beat the Moplah genocide of 1921, beat the Mari Jhappi massacre of 1979, beat the Nelli massacre of 1983, beat now telling our children that Tipu Sultan was no warrior. Actually, Kodava, Kannadigas were...
Okay, what's the point?
The point is, why don't you want to give credit to the ruling dispensation of Narendra Modi for bringing...
Okay, we've got two people who are going to respond to you.
My name was taken.
We are
My
going to
name
have
was
two
taken, so
people
can I
responding.
very briefly
Yes,
respond?
Dr. Ranganathan goes first and Sushil Pandit will respond right after. Yes.
Yes, very, very briefly, Rahul, 2 points because my name was taken. Number one, when it comes to freedom of speech and expression and upholding it, I'm afraid no political party can be said that it stands up for it because BJP is equally culpable for banning books and films. In fact, a lot of films, one Parzania that you showed was quote unquote banned in Gujarat. Narendra Modi, when he was the chief minister, he's banned a lot of books, including Jinnah, the book by a BJP MP. I forget his name.
Jaswant Singh.
Jaswant Singh. Yeah, that was banned in Gujarat. So many. James Lane's book was banned in Gujarat on Gandhi, on Shivaji. So BJP is equally culpable. It's just that Congress has a longer history, so it has banned so much more, including the films based on 84 riots. Number two.
We need to have a sense of proportion. Don't
Ms. Sanju Verma, I did not interrupt you.
Okay, Sanju Verma.
I did not interrupt you. Your point was...
Sense of proportion. You can't compare. Rahul Shivshankar, please tell me with your hand on
I
your
did
heart,
not interrupt
are you
you.
comparing the ban
Please
on
let us
Tanzania
have...
with the ban on Kashmir genocide? It was
No,
not
I'll only
just
say one
32
thing.
years.
I'll only say one thing. With my hand on my heart, with my hand on my heart, with my hand on my heart, I'm going to say tonight, viewers. Mr. Modi has been in power for 7 years, maybe 8 now. We haven't had one commission in place to investigate this genocide. In fact, till this movie wasn't released, and it's all very well to say that the movie would not have been made under a Congress dispensation, etc., etc. All that might be true. I'm not denying it. There is a certain revisionism that is happening, and luckily for us, it is happening because there is a certain atmosphere, a permissiveness to balance the narrative. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the Kashmiri Hindus, Mr. Pandit, have got justice.
And this is where I just want, can I come in for 10 seconds?
Yeah,
Rahul, if you don't
yeah.
mind. I apologize.
And the test really will be. The test, you see, I began to see Mr. Modi as a breath of fresh air when, in 2013, when he campaigned in Srinagar in Kashmir, and he said that, this is before his election, and he said that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and he's at least done 2 things. But the Kashmiri Hindus, we haven't had even a iota of justice. And there are people who've gone on television and confessed to murder, rape, killings, and they're sitting out there being tried under PMLA cases. There have been commissions, viewers, set up for, deciding the emoluments of MPs and all sorts of trivialities, but not a genocide. So I am retaining my sense of proportion here. But nonetheless, yes, Doctor, before I bring in Mr. Pandit.
Very briefly, that with due respect, Rahul, neither I nor Ms. Sanju Verma are Kashmiri Hindus. The one Kashmiri Hindu out here is Dr. Sushil Pandit. So I would leave it to him to tell us whether this government, not just this government or 8 years, but in the last 13 years, India has been governed by BJP majority government, NDA 1 and 2, and now 3. Whether NDA 1, 2, and 3 have done enough for Kashmiri Hindus, let him answer it. But according to me, and I've heard you as well, no, it has not done enough. I will leave it to the real Kashmiri Hindu to answer.
See, Mr. Vajpayee used the term insaniyat. But Mr. Pandit, that didn't translate into being humane towards your long ignored cause. But
7006.
1 second, Sheikh Amir. If you don't want to be part of this debate and you want to make your powerful telephone calls to all sorts of sundry characters, you can do it. But at least show us the courtesy, sir. You may not show the courtesy of having secured justice for those who were butchered, but at least tonight, respect this solemn occasion and this solemn debate on a subject which is very sensitive and critical. Please. Yes, Mr.
Rahul, you don't allow us to talk. You are playing bunty bubbly with your children. Okay, thank you so much for your
Look
silence.
at the language.
No, these people are beyond redemption. I don't even know why we invite them on this show. Please, throw him out. I'm not interested in having a conversation with a person who can't even begin to bring himself to be civil. Just throw him out. I have no interest in keeping Sheikh or whatever, Amir or whatever his name is, here to listen to his absolute pedestrian talk. Yes, Mr. Pandit.
Thank you, Rahul, and good evening to all fellow panelists. We just heard the testimony of Rajendra Koul, son of deceased Sarvanand Kaul, and he was referring to a probe that he had asked for in his father and younger brother's brutal murder. The government of the day had in center son as a minister, and father was the chief minister, supported by the same government. This is between 98 and 2003. The CBI was under the central government. The state was supported by the center party. It was a coalition. And mind you, the son left that coalition, resigned from his ministry because he had an issue about Gujarat riots.
Very true.
Irony is this, he kicked that coalition government of which he was part for years, taking an alibi of Gujarat. In fact, he was miffed because he lost elections in the assemblies to muftis.
Yes.
Okay. Now, that is the reality of, okay, I can say that was a compulsion of a coalition which was, say, 22, 23 members. Fine. Okay. Granted. I must politely suggest that governments of the day are not elected to build a narrative. Narrative is built in newspapers, news channels, civil society platforms, social media platforms, in conversations, through books, through films, through music, through literature, through festivals. Narrative is a collective voice of a society and a polity. Governments are elected to act, to form a policy, to take decisions, to deliver results. Narrative is not their problem and not their remit. And if they allow a narrative to happen, if that is their remit, thank you. We'll soon be having a narrative on Hindu genocide in Kerala, Hindu genocide in Bengal that happened post-elections, Hindu genocide in Assam. There'll be narratives galore, and we will revel in the freedom to discuss the blood and gore of those narratives. Sorry, unless a genocide is recognized, it is acknowledged, and justice delivered, narrative is impotent. Narrative is nothing, means nothing, is empty talk. Especially when government of the day reduces it to applauding just the film but refuses to act on the message that is delivered by the film, which is nothing but one word: genocide. Admit to this genocide, acknowledge this genocide, form a tribunal, take testimonies. This generation, I don't know for how long will be alive. It's already 32 years. Most of the victims, older victims, are dead and gone. Some victims are still there. Please take their testimonies. Please take their own life-felt experiences. This is priceless because our courts have refused to take their testimonies, refused to investigate, refused to put them on record. Otherwise, 50 years later, we'll still be speculating whether we were turned away by Jagmohan, who was an RSS agent. And those who say that forget that Jagmohan was first appointed Lieutenant Governor by Mrs. Gandhi in Delhi.
That's true.
Then he was appointed Governor of Kashmir by Mrs. Gandhi. Then he continued as Governor of Kashmir under Rajiv Gandhi. And he wrote letters to Rajiv Gandhi saying Kashmir is at the brink of collapse. Please do something about it. But he's conveniently called an RSS agent and a BJP member, which happened years later. I mean, this is travesty.
This is travesty. Lokesh Jindal, 1 second, Sanju Verma, he's raising his hand. Let me bring in the Congress. Lokesh Jindal, let me tell you, there is a litany of omissions by the Congress. Rajiv said Jammu and Kashmir situation is bad in 1988, but Farooq is a friend. What can be done? This was revealed by V.K. Ganju, son of slain Justice Ganju, and backed up by M.J. Akbar, who was a journalist on a trip to China, and he heard Rajiv Gandhi say this. And he came out and confirmed it. May 1996, Hindus migrated on their own. It self-imposed their migration. Can't tag them internally displaced persons. This was the P.V. Narasimha Rao government's affidavit to the NHRC in 1996. You didn't even want to call them the victims of a genocide, sir. You were denying them even that much. A Congress-supported government, Gujarat government in 1997, 19 December. Governments of view that term migrant is more appropriate. Restoration of property or compensation is also not possible. Lut gaya to lut gaya. It's gone. This is your submission. Congress-backed Gujarat government's submission to the NHRC 19 December 1997. It's all there, sir. It's all there. And I want to ask you, your then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh meets Yasin Malik for a 1-hour meeting. He's a butcher, confessed to it on TV. Why, sir? Why, Mr. Jindal? Were you denying that the genocide happened in affidavits? Can I ask you?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to agree with the Dr. Pandit as well. Nobody is denying that injustice was done to Kashmiri Hindus. But what we have always upheld is that it is a deep wound, but let's not let it become some form of an infection in the country. It needs to be healed rather than it be acted. It needs to be made as some form of a means. Now, let me get back to past a bit. I'll just take a minute. See, when we are talking about the 1986 Anantnag riots, what the BJP spokesperson said. So let me tell you, these Anantnag riots were engineered by Mufti Saeed, because Anantnag was his home constituency, and it was this very Mufti Saeed.
The concoction last time
Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister.
He said, don't lie. He told me, don't lie.
Please do not interrupt. Please.
He's read his history today.
Anantnag riots happened when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister.
Please do not interrupt.
Let me speak. Okay, you can rebut, ma'am. Make the points. Make your points like I am doing on this paper, and then we can rebut. No problems. Yes.
So it was Mufti Saeed who engineered the Anantnag riots, and this very Mufti Saeed was later made Home Minister by the VP Singh government. It was this very Mufti Saeed who would later be forming PDP in 1999. In fact, even the State Accountability Commission has stated, in fact, there are evidences which have stated that NDA always wanted to support a PDP against National Conference. Now, when we are talking about all these facts, we cannot ignore them. We cannot ignore the fact that some form of a radical leader who had very much involvement in the genocide or whatever, exodus, whatever terminology is being stated.
Oh.
It was this very leader with whom...
Whatever terminology.
By Narendra Modi from 2015 to 2000.
1 second, madam, let him finish.
About these forms of coalitions.
He's incriminating himself. Just let him finish.
Has ignored the plight of Kashmiri Hindus, and right now, when the Kashmir Files movie is propagating the injustice done to the Kashmiri Hindus, BJP wants to take the credit and put all the blame on the Rajiv Gandhi government, which is unfair. The approach that is required by the government is to heal the wounds that have occurred in 1990s.
Okay. Okay. So three problems with what I'll bring you in 30 seconds. Three problems, Mr. Lokesh Jindal. One, you said no one is denying the genocide took place. So let me then go back to your own affidavits to the NHRC. Hindus migrated on their own. It is self-imposed.
Wow.
चले गए, वो अपने आप ही चले गए। वेदर बदल गया था, उनको अच्छा नहीं लगा होगा। चेस्टनट्स ठीक तरह से रोस्ट नहीं हो रहे थे कश्मीर में, श्रीनगर में, तो हम छोड़ के चले गए। यह आपने कहा है। दिस इज नॉट अ डिनायल, व्हाट इज इट?
No, I'll just say, see, when I'm talking about exodus and genocide, these are two different issues altogether. Okay. The exodus happened due to genocide as one of the factors.
But you have denied it, sir. You said there was no genocide, so let's not call them anything but migrants. वो तो अपने आप चले गए थे, कोई उनको मार नहीं रहा था। वो उनको वहाँ के अखरोट।
But at that point of time, the Home Minister, Mufti Saeed, he could have handled the situations better. Jagmohan was the governor.
Mr. Jindal, your own government denied it. It's written here. It's in black and white, sir.
Absolutely.
It's on your screens.
And it was not Mufti as Home Minister at
Second
that time.
Second point. No, it wasn't. You're absolutely right.
It was Narasimha Rao's government. It was not VP Singh's government anymore.
Now, second point.
It was.
You say that you have allowed this to become a wound. Sir, the Congress allowed it to become a wound by putting a slip of a band-aid on a hemorrhaging artery.
Madam, sir.
No, 1 minute. Thirdly, you said that the BJP wants to take credit from this movie by promoting it. What was Rahul Gandhi doing? Attending the premieres, special screening of movies that were made like Firak. And then Himanshu Vyas, Congress spokesperson of Gujarat, who went to Parzania movie and said, special screening planned to expose the BJP. वो politics नहीं कर रहे थे, sir. वो प्रसाद बेच रहे थे क्या? Was he distributing prasad? Come on. How can you be so two-faced, sir? Please.
It's not being two-faced.
I don't know what it's called, sir. I mean, you want to change the word, you can come out with whatever hypocritical, whatever pleasant word you want to use. Yes, Sanju Verma, yes.
Yes. Rahul, first and foremost, let me tell you that Sushil Pandit made some very interesting points. And one thing which struck me was when he said that a genocide needs to be acknowledged, needs to be taken cognizance of, but thereafter action needs to be taken. I can assure you, Rahul, I'm putting my neck on the act, but I'm known to not mince my words. I'm sure the voice of millions of Kashmiri Pandits is reaching out to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. I'm sure whether it is a law commission or whether it is a probe commission, the nuances will be decided by the government. And I'll tell you why it's not empty rhetoric. Don't forget, Rahul, anti-sea crash happened. And it was after 30 years. Please, your audience needs to know, 14, barely within a few months of taking over as the Prime Minister of India, thing that Narendra Modi did was to institute an SIT to probe the 1984 genocide.
Okay.
But, please, thanks to that, Sajjan Kumar today is behind bars.
I agree.
If Congress की सरकार होती, तो सज्जन कुमार को आज आप थाली पर प्रसाद दे रहे होते.
I agree. So let me then ask. Okay.
You promoted Kamalnath.
Okay.
XL Bhagat is dead in any case. So do not challenge the Modi government. Please, Rahul, a lot of accusations have been heard. One thing which I want to very respectfully tell Sushil Pandit, he's very articulate. And he very articulately, completely busted the agenda that Jagmohan was an RSS agent. I will just add to that. Jagmohan had a very distinguished career. 3 times Lok Sabha MP, 2 times Rajya Sabha MP, twice the LG of Goa government in view of Delhi, twice the governor of J&K, and once the union minister with A.B. Vajpayee at the fag end of his political career. 20% of Jagmohan's political career was with the BJP, 80% was with the Congress, who was a close aide of Indira Gandhi. So point number 1, stop trying to portray Jagmohan as somebody who was working for the BJP in its backyard. But most importantly, people who say BJP has done nothing, Rahul, I think the start is always made by taking the right policy decisions, and abrogation of Article 370 during our lifetime.
Okay, let me tell you.
The way for Kashmiri Pandits being rehabilitated.
Let me tell you, viewers, Mr. Lokesh Jindal, this is for your reference, Mr. Markan, who according to reports, and this was something that was confirmed by Times Now in a meeting with Sonia Gandhi, one of your legislators got up and said Mr. Markan was a jallad. He was a jallad. That is what was said about him, and the reference is very clear. Mr. Markan today is going to be in charge of overseeing transitions in the state from where Rahul Gandhi is a current serving member of parliament. So that is your respect for genocides and riots which are communally orientated. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan, before I play out a very significant soundbite, viewers, which will encapsulate everything that we've been trying to say here. Yes, Doctor.
Yeah, very briefly, Rahul, I think this, possibly not in a lighter vein, but I think this needs to be emphasized. And I think with due respect, the BJP spokesperson needs to pay heed to this. You see, we are not here to commend the BJP for the great steps it has taken, because we've done that and we do that from time to time. For example, I am the biggest, I was the one who appreciated and shouted from the rooftops and hailed this government for abrogating Article 370, for bringing in so many decisions.
The truth. I was only exposing the lies.
Ms. Sanju Verma, you know.
Okay.
Please, Anand Ranganathan, you are a BJP supporter nowadays, and you track the Modi government on even days. So stop saying you're the biggest supporter of this government. Don't lie. Please don't lie. You have a viewpoint, fine. Why can't you take my viewpoint?
Rahul, can you know, is this the way to behave?
But Ms. Verma, okay now, calm down, please.
Sorry.
He has a point. Let him. Why are you getting? You have made the point. We have all heard you that Mr. Modi set up a commission, which he did, to go into the 84 riots, and now all we are saying is that we hope that he does the same for Kashmiri Hindus. There is not a moment to lose. Fair enough. 1 minute. It hasn't happened as yet.
This constant interruption.
Yes, Doctor.
This shows the inferiority complex. But anyway, Rahul, I just wanted to make a point.
I don't need a half.
Now, Rahul, you really need to mute.
Okay, please. Now, just all of you, please.
You know,
who the hell are you?
No, it's not a question
of all. Sanjuji. Now, Dr. Ranganathan, let's not talk about inferiority, superiority. Just get to the point. What's the point? Very quickly, Dr. Ranganathan.
I was making the point with due respect before I was interrupted.
Okay, please, silence. Yes, Doctor. Very quickly, 30 seconds, please. Yeah.
Yes, so as I was saying, we are not here to commend the government for the good steps it has taken. As a common citizen, we are here to criticize also the government when it doesn't take steps.
Yeah.
And I see as a common citizen the proof in front of me, as do Kashmiri Hindus, as does Sushil Pandit in the last 32 years.
Yes.
15 years, the government
we are all waiting,
has been off UPA,
and
we will.
Yes, we will. 1 second, I need to step in because I'm losing time, and I just want to end this by playing out, very significantly, viewers, a version by Mr. S.P. Vaid, needs no introduction, where he says that terrorists were released in 1998. You all know, viewers, who was in power at that time in the valley. In 1988, viewers, these terrorists were released in 1988, and that they came back and they committed some of the atrocities. Listen to this.
1988, two constables of the Kupwara police were going from Kupwara to Tangdhar. They came across two men somewhere near Sadhana Pass, and this was an accidental encounter. They fired on the policeman, and these two people were arrested. Later on, with the interrogation, the whole conspiracy, the Operation Topak, which was planned by ISI for whole this terrorism affair in Kashmir, came out, and the top leadership, a first batch of 70 people, many of them, I think about 13 of them were arrested by J&K police, who unfortunately were released later on by the government, whoever was, I don't know whose decision it was. And that later on became the leadership of most of the terrorist organizations. So